that problem too. So, happy Monday, everyone. This is Greg Dixon for Playing Music for Fun, and I'm talking with Mick Dalla-Vee. And I've known Mick for, I don't know, 20 years or something, on and off. And I first met him when he was involved with Beatles tribute show called Revolver. But my interest here is how did you get started in music, and then maybe you could just take us through your journey a bit here.
Sure. How much time you got? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'll run out of recording after about 6 or 7 hours.
Okay, well that's okay. I'll take it all up then. I must have met you in the 90s.
Yes, it was.
Must have been 94. I bet.
Probably 1994. Yep, that would be about right.
Yeah, that seems about right, because I think it was just after we did. I think I got to know you around the time we did the Vogue Theater and into Whistler and that sort of jaunt with Revolver.
Yeah, and we did a couple of things down at the Pacific Coliseum, I guess. For you played in the basement in the concourse there once, and also and I went and shot video of Revolver out in New Westminster.
New Westminster, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
The show had some rough moments, but
yeah. Yeah, well, the whole thing is that when we first started, we had very little budget, so everything was done on VHS tapes. Yes. And of course, we would rent everything, and sometimes, you'd have to go rent from basically a place that sells home audio. And so I know Bill Allman would be running around trying to find videotape recorders that wouldn't be showing 12, 12, 12 on the screen whenever you push the play button. And then before the show and on the breaks, he'd have to fast forward and rewind them so that as soon as he hit the play, it would go into the audio visual, because we would be doing dialogue, and then it would go into audio visual where we change costume. And if it's not lined up properly, I mean, it'll sit there for the screen will be black after we talk for 5 minutes, which is bad.
No, I remember running the tape one show, and it was really, I think it worked okay until the third act or something, and then I missed a cue, and wait a minute.
It was so difficult and so primitive. And when we did the tour, now when you were there, we would have been using television sets as well. We didn't have a big screen. So
at the Vogue, you had a screen at the Vogue, I think.
Did we have a screen at the Vogue?
And I think maybe also at the Paramount out in West Van.
West Van, the Paramount?
Yeah, whatever the old theater, not West Vancouver. I meant the Westminster.
The Columbia, yeah.
Yeah, the Columbia,
yeah. Yeah, we had a screen there, but I know that we would tour with 8 televisions. I think it was 8. Yes. We'd have 4, the biggest you can get at the time, because flat screen TVs weren't around then. We'd have to carry around these 8 to 12 TVs and have them on stage, and they were all linked together. And
I got a LCD projector from Temu and I've got a 120-inch screen coming, all for less than $100, and they're, and way more portable than what you had before, for sure.
Oh, it's just insane. It's like the shows I do with Michael now. It's like, all our audio visuals on my laptop, and we just make sure that whenever we show up to when we check out a theater, we make sure that they've got a projector and that they've got HDMI cable that can run to the center of the stage, and yada yada. And it's easy. It's plug and play. It works flawlessly, but most of the time anyway.
Most of the time, HDMI is a great invention, really.
Yeah. But okay, so you want to go back to the very beginning? Well, I was born and raised in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario.
Yeah.
I went to Catholic school until I was in grade 8, and from there I went to a high school called Bawading CNVS, which stands for Collegiate and Vocational School. And reason I went there, basically, well, I guess it was probably within our catchment area for the most part, but also because my brothers had gone there and my sister. And my brothers, especially one of them, played in the Bawading band, which was just this fantastic 75-piece orchestra. It was just unbelievable. And I wanted to do that so bad. So I got to Bawading, and so in grade 9. And ironically, I think it was Michael Sicoli and Jeff Neal and Brian Armstrong. Brian Armstrong was 2 grades ahead of me. Jeff Neal and Michael Sicoli were 1 grade ahead of me. And those are all the guys that ended up being in my band Shamma, but I'm skipping ahead a bit. I had my own band there called Balderdash. And I played with some friends of mine that I'd met on Landslide Road, which was about 5 miles from my home. And then we ended up hooking up with these 2 sisters, Roseanne and Pauline Bourgoin. And now that's Roseanne Swift and Pauline Parent. And but anyway, they fantastic singers, these girls. Like the vocals in this band were ridiculous. When I think back for like a little high school band, it was like quite incredible. And it was because of those girls. Those girls were just incredible singers. They sang from the time they were like 4, literally. Anyway, so in Boating, I remember I was in the music room and I'd seen Michael Sicoli around, but he sort of didn't really. He was kind of giving me the cold shoulder, for the most part. He sort of seemed to keep to himself. But I was in the music room one day and I was at the back of the room and I had a guitar. I was holding a guitar and he was in the music room and out the front about to walk out the door. And I played the opening lick to Octopus's Garden. And he stopped and he came over and said, "Play that again." And I played it for him. He goes, "You like the Beatles?" I said, "Yeah, I love the Beatles." He said, "Yeah, me too." And we were best friends from that time on. Right from that moment, just because of the Beatles, and it's so ironic because we're still doing like our Lennon McCartney show to this day, after all this time.
All this time.
And so I had a high school band. Michael had a band with his father called Solid Gold, and they were more into jazz and stuff. Like they did weddings and that sort of thing, but they were a lot of these guys are pretty hip players. Like his dad was a great jazz guitar player and all that stuff. So his musical nurturing was at a much higher level than mine. Mine was more like grand funk, and he was doing all this freaking Cole Porter stuff and all that, just unbelievable. But anyway, so Michael and I did get together with the drummer from my band, Tim Hewitt, and we played a place called the Lock City Hotel. And of course, I was 15 at the time, and Rainey and Mike Tim and Mike were 16. And we were playing. Of course, the drinking age at that time was 21 years old, and you weren't allowed to go in there, even with special passes. Yeah. But luckily, as we all kind of, I guess, they turned a blind eye. They didn't even think to ask us for ID, and we started playing there. We were packing out the joint. It was great. But we were packing out the joint. That gives a lot of kids from high school. And anyway, so I remember that Saturday, the guy who owned the hotel, Mr. Sim was his name. And I remember he called me into his office and says, "Yeah, you guys are doing good business. Can you do another 3 weeks?" I said, "Sure." So we're there that night and we used to play 4 40-minute sets a night. And I remember we were just finishing up the second set. And I'm looking at every door. There's 2 cops at every door. And I'm going, uh-oh, we got a problem here. And so anyway, as it turns out, we all got busted for playing underage, and they wouldn't let anybody in or out of the place. Everybody was there, got busted. But the funny thing is that I think our fine was $75 for the fine each. We never got paid for that week, so he still owes me. Our pay for the whole week for the 3 of us was $288, $96 each, if I remember correctly. And anyway, so we got fined $75 each for playing in a bar underage. And I didn't drink at all. I figured maybe if I didn't drink, they would turn a blind eye, but that didn't work. And Michael and Timmy were having fun drinking beer, and they got the same fine as me. Yeah. But but anyway, the nice thing about it was that, of course, then I ended up being called as a witness for the prosecution of the hotel. So they called me in, and it kept getting pushed back. So I'd get a day off school, I'd go to court, sit there, and every time I went to court, they gave me $50. So by the time I finally testified, I probably made about $200. So I was up about $125 on the fine.
There we go.
But I had nothing bad to say, because their questions were you served alcohol? No. Were you offered alcohol? No. I wasn't doing them any good. because I didn't drink. So, are you lying? No, I didn't drink when I was there. I thought if I didn't drink, nobody would find me, but I knew I wasn't supposed to be there. But anyway, so from there, of course, Michael and I played together, and Michael knew Jeff Neal. Sorry, I got to move this thing off my screen. That's why you keep seeing my finger move up here.
Sure. Yes.
Michael had hung out with Jeff Neal, and Jeff Neal and Brian Armstrong were really good friends. They had a band together in high school called Bedwe're Tucket, and they were quite a good band. And Brian left to go on the road when he graduated grade 12. And he ended up playing with he left with a band called Barney, and they ended up backing the Fabulous Platters. And so the Fabulous Platters played all over the world. I remember, well, not all over the world, but I remember they went to Guam, and I remember it was like this big picture on the write-up in the Sioux Star paper, and there's Brian Armstrong playing Guam, going, "Wow, Brian made it! Oh my God!" Like just anybody playing outside of Sault Ste. Marie you've made it,
International star.
Absolutely. Like Sault Ste. Marie was a great town, great talent and stuff, but it seemed like most people, like I still have a lot of my high school friends still live there. They never really moved. They just stayed there.
Funny how that works.
Yeah. I mean, they're happy. I mean, good Lord, the cost of living is a lot less there. That's for sure. At least real estate wise. But anyway, so Brian left on the road with Barney and played with the Platters, and then he came back and he got Jeff on the road. And he came back to Wadding High School. Jeff was finished his grade 13 by then, and so off he goes to play on the road with Brian. And then about not even a year later, it was spring break. I think spring exam time, so it would have been March, April, something like that. And Jeff came back to Wadding, and he asked Michael and I to go for we want to go for a coffee or go for dinner. So we went to this restaurant called Muyo's that all the musicians hung out with. And Jeff said, "I've got this dream, and I think the four of us could be this incredible band." And I was going, wow, I didn't even think I deserved to be on the same planet. Jeff was the world's greatest guitar player. Brian Armstrong was the world's best drummer, I was going, and Michael and I played together, and of course, I respected Michael like crazy. But just to be asked to be playing with these guys was like, I'm going, wow, But anyway, so that was it. And he said, well, let's look at starting it up January, and we already have a huge following out west because they'd made their mark out west, and rather than go to Toronto, let's you guys get your money together and your equipment, and we'll meet in Vancouver. So Michael and I flew on January 2nd of the following year. So that was January 2nd of 1976. We flew out of Sault Ste. Marie, went straight to Vancouver, rehearsed for 4 days in Surrey, and went on the road. Our first 3 weeks were in Port Alberni at the Barclay Hotel.
Okay.
We played there for 3 weeks, practicing every day, and then we went out to the prairies and played out there. But I'll tell you, the reason why I'm spending so much time on Shama is because Shama is what's allowed me to do music for the rest of my life. It was such a good band, and it really made a huge mark. The band was very, very dedicated, very dedicated. Every day was all about the show, how to make it better, how the band to play better, our presentation, our lighting, our sound, making sure everything was like the best we could get it. And we never partied. We weren't a party band. We didn't drink. We didn't do drugs. We were just very, very, very focused. And our focus was Bruce Allen. We wanted Bruce Allen as our manager. Like he had just finished with BTO at the time. Yeah, he had just finished with BTO at the time. Brian Armstrong picked up this book on BTO, and he read it just so we knew what Bruce Allen was like as a person, and he gave it to me, and I read it so I'd know what Bruce Allen was like as a person, so that when we had a meeting with him, we'd know how to talk to him. Yeah. And so we purposely didn't play in Vancouver for 2 years. So by the time we played Vancouver in 1978, we played at the Body Shop, which was the hottest club in Vancouver at the time. And our very first night, Monday night, Bruce Allen was right front row center, right middle of the stage, the first table. And he was there for the whole night. And he said, "I like what I'm seeing. I want to see you guys in my office tomorrow." And he started managing us. And so we did everything right perfectly up until that point. At that point, we lost our own vision and the band split up by 1980. So,
you had a commitment style moment.
Well, what it was is that we knew what we were doing up until that point. Now, in all fairness, our songs weren't strong, but there were songwriters around that could have helped us big time,
Yeah,
and you know,
yeah, for sure.
Jim Valance, of course, and
Yeah,
Paul Dean had quit Streetheart by then and he was nurturing Loverboy. Loverboy was about to be released at that point, um, and he was going to be working with us, and it was the what happened was with the band started asking, well, what do you think to people outside of the band? What do you think? What do you think? Well, everybody's got an opinion.
yeah,
And
for
if you
sure.
start following everybody's opinion, you lose your own vision, you know?
Yeah,
So that was a serious mistake for us. And yeah, I remember I bought my second home, actually. The first home I bought in Alberta, in Calgary. I bought a home and I only lived in it for about 6 months, and I had to move. I bought it in March, and I moved out of there in November and moved to Surrey. Now, and the reason I had to move is Bruce Allen was and he that was late 77. Let me think about this. 78, yeah. And Bruce, because Bruce Allen had started managing us, and he said, I'm not going to manage a band that's based in Calgary. So if you want me to manage you, you got to move out to Vancouver. So I sold the house at a loss, and
yeah,
took my wife and my daughter, and we headed, and our little dog, and we headed across, you know, the mountains into Vancouver, and had got an apartment in Surrey. But I yeah, we just we lost our own vision. Right? We played all of our cards right until we started asking everybody else what they thought and what
yeah.
should we do and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, it was kind of sad. But luckily that band made such a mark that I've been able to do this for the rest of my life. You know, I guess it put me and Mike. Brian ended up retiring from music. He just played in a weekend band, but he did extremely well with life insurance. I mean, lives in an estate in Langley. He's doing very well.
Doing very well. Yeah,
Or actually, he's done very well. He's retired now. But anyway, he's yeah. But me and Mike and Jeff, you know, we've been able to play with all these people. You know, if it wasn't for Shama, there wouldn't have been me playing with Randy Bachman. If it wasn't for Shama, there wouldn't be Jeff playing with Streetheart. You know, if it wasn't for Shama, Michael wouldn't have been doing what he's doing, and ended up working for all these companies out of the United States. You know, so everybody's having a fantastic career.
yeah. I've got a photo. I've got a photo of Jeff Neal that we took at one of the cancer concerts, and he just looks like a god, a guitar god.
Oh, he certainly is, you know, and nobody performs like that guy. I mean, he's
No.
just no, I mean he's camera ready almost every shot. You know,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
if you point a camera at him anytime during the show, you're going to get a rock star moment.
Oh yeah, he had the
Just
pose, and the light was behind him. You know, he was, it was just.
oh yeah. Yeah, and you know what was funny is that, like, even in Shama, he was like that. And of course, back then, I mean, me and him, he was always thinner than me, but I was pretty close to him, and we used to do, you know, he could always do full splits, and he was
Yes.
always really flexible. You know, like he'd stand there, and he'd be standing there in a doorway, and he'd take his leg and he'd stick it up above his head, so he's standing on one leg and perfectly up, like some sort of acrobat, you know.
Yeah, I'd be in traction.
Oh yeah, me too. But here's the thing: is that we'd be doing solos and like doing like something like The Boys Are Back in Town, and it keeps going and going. Well, he'd be looking at me, and we'd be. I remember we were playing at a place, I forget what it was called, some nightclub in Vancouver, and it had a lit up dance floor, like the Saturday Night Fever sort of
Oh
dance
yeah,
floor.
yeah,
And we were out there doing those solos. Nobody was dancing. Everybody was just watching the band. And of course, he starts going down in splits, and I'm going, okay, I'm going to follow you. And I'm going down and down and down. And we finally got down where I was about maybe 8 inches from the floor. And it was just killing me, right? And he looks at me and he just goes like this, and he pulls his hair like this. And as he does that, he goes flat down, right? And I looked at him and went, you bugger. Now, here's the thing. He could also jump up out of that position.
yes.
Me, not so much. So here I am down as low as I can go. And now I've got to try to get up, you know? Oh, God. But yeah, it was. But the thing is, I remember Jeff, we were doing, you know, my old school by Steely Dan that has all those intricate guitar
Oh yeah.
parts. Like,
Oh yeah, for
well,
sure.
he would do all that while doing splits and jumping up and down and stuff. So he's playing this really intricate stuff, and people are watching him, and he's like doing these acrobatics on stage. It was quite entertaining, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I can't believe that he could play like that while, being so athletic.
Yeah.
But
No, it's
anyway, he
amazing.
did.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Do you learn mostly by playing in bands and learning songs? What was did you take lessons at some point or
No, no,
yeah,
it's always been by ear, and my it's one of those things where I don't practice enough. Obviously, there's I think there's with me it's like I'm a work to rule guy. If there's a gig coming up, I learn I learn everything and learn it as good as it can be learned and do the gig. But for me to just sit down and learn something for the sake of learning it, I've very seldom have done that. Not since I've been a professional. That was stuff I did when I was in high school. But
yeah,
as soon as I became a professional at 18, it's like I just learned the songs that I needed to know for my shows. But the lucky thing is of course, is I've got a pretty good ear and I got a really good memory. So pretty much any song I've ever learned, I can still play it and sing it after all these years. So it just stays with me. And there's a lot of times there'll be songs. I remember with Cease and Desist with Mark and Brent. A lot of our song lists like we'd be playing up in Whistler, for an après ski, and people be yelling out songs we'd never played before. And I go, I think I can do a verse of this. Most times I could actually make it all the way through the song. I didn't just know a verse; I knew the whole thing. It would just come to me without ever having played it before. And they had such good ears; they would play along with
yeah.
me. And then the next day, but hey, let's do that one again. And so it becomes part of your set list,
Part of your set list, yeah, for
even
sure.
without ever even listening to the record. It just
Yeah.
yeah, it worked really well.
Yeah. Like
We'd actually learn those.
I think one of the things is, I wrote an article basically that says that listening to music in your car counts as music training. And I think
Yeah,
if you grew up just always listening, like I always had the radio on, always going, and even
yeah.
like you've never played something, but somewhere it's in there, back in there, it's been imprinted in some way.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And that's what it is. If you have an ear at all, if you have the ability to pick up a guitar and somebody calls out a song and if you can hear what key it's in, or sometimes it doesn't even take the key, if you can hear the changes in your head, it's that's a gift, that's the ultimate campfire thing, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so what else can I tell you?
Well, yeah. So it's interesting that you and Michael Scully have been playing these things, these tributes. So you've been in all the greats like Lennon and McCartney
Mhm.
and Elton John and the whole thing. And um, so that's I think I think your shows are a lot simpler than than what Revolver was attempting. Is it?
Um, well, it's the technology is advanced.
Okay.
You know, like we could do the Revolver show now. Like I could run all the audio visuals and play.
Yeah.
I can do all that,
Sure.
and it would be perfect. But now, back then it was like a 6-man crew to make that thing happen. We kind of got outrageous. So I remember the dancing the dancing yellow submarine going across the back of the stage at the Vogue Theater, and
Oh yeah. I think Linda Scratchley was who ran the submarine.
yeah. And then of course we had the opened up with the entire Ed Sullivan set with the arrows and everything.
Yeah, and the
And
arrows. Yeah.
then that would switch. And yeah, and then during the middle of the first set, Ringo, so Rocket's drum set, which was started out with the arrows and the circle. The arrows would disappear during one of the audio visuals when the stage was dark. The arrows would disappear, and all of a sudden, Rocket's drums are now on a square stage. And because it was just a matter of putting, the ends on the circle, but all of a sudden the backdrop has changed that quickly.
Yeah.
And then the next set would be, the drum riser would be lower, and Rock would be playing a 5-piece wooden kit like Ringo had in the Let It Be movie.
Yeah.
And so, and then the drum head changed from that sort of artsy, psychedelic red and yellow head they had during Magical Mystery Tour and all that stuff. Yeah, it was there was just there was so much stuff going on all the time, and it's amazing. Like Bill's just my hero. The stuff that he could keep
Oh
in
yeah.
his brain. Okay, this has to happen now, and this has to happen now. He's just incredible how he can do all that stuff.
No, he's a master cat herder.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, like with the band and things, and like when I was playing in a band, I one time said, like the tendency is you finish the gig and everybody wants to pack up, and I just whispered to him, says it'd be more professional if we got off the stage even for 35 seconds, and then he would just, oh, everybody off the stage. He goes, and
Well,
anyway,
I'm bad that way too. Sometimes it's like, especially if I'm like, I don't do them anymore. But when I was playing nightclubs, it's like I couldn't wait to get the hell out of there. So I'd be the last chord. Thank you very much, and I'm starting to unplug, and I want to go home. I'm
we're out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
musicians would get mad at me sometimes. You got to leave the stage first.
So Bill and I, we wrestled with that Vox Super Beetle amp.
Oh yeah, Michael's, yeah.
Holy smoly! We I think one time we thought about we just leaving it on the street, hoping somebody would steal it. So
yeah. Did you ever have to deal with an Ampeg SVT?
No, is that pretty heavy?
Oh, it's literally like when we were in Shama. Michael had two 4x8 cabinets, and the head was at least 100 pounds, and the cabinets were about the same. And it was like refrigerators. And of course, you're going up these back stairs, and oh my god! And luckily we didn't have this, but the bands that had those Hammond B3 organs that they used to carry around with them, oh my god! I can't imagine the injuries and back stuff that's probably happened.
No, the Hammonds were horrendous.
Yeah. And moving them into these little wee freaking nightclubs for a week for crap pay, just anything to play.
Now there's so much really good gear that's light.
Yeah. That's the wonderful thing. It's like now with Michael and I with our Billy and Elton show. I remember we were doing some shows, and we would get shells around our electric pianos, so they looked like real pianos. And then we were doing a show at the Red Robinson, whatever it became after that, the Hard Rock. We were doing a Billy and Elton show at the Hard Rock, and they'd gotten me a piano owned by, actually, might sound bad to say this, I think it was Headley's piano. Oh. that lead singer's in trouble these days. But anyway, so they had a piano that they were storing at the Hard Rock that basically looked like a mirror ball. And some friends of mine gave me a baby grand piano that was broken, and so I had it gutted. So Michael had that with an electric piano in that, and I had an electric piano in the mirror ball piano, because I'm doing the Elton thing, which is a little more flashy. But anyway, so at the end of the show, Michael's brother-in-law comes up on stage, and he's looking, and Michael says, "Yeah, Barry, I'd never met him before at that time. Yeah, Barry, so this is what we need, something like this." And Barry's looking at the pianos, going, "Yeah, I think I can do something like that." Well, the guy is absolute genius. So I have a white one, and Michael has a black one. Both of them will fit into the back of a hatchback, and they're magnificent. People can be right beside them and think they're a grand piano. Like they're so beautiful. They're glossy. They shine. The look, the size of them, everything. Like people always walk into where we're playing, going, "How'd you get these two baby grands in here?" They don't realize that they come in these bags. We got them. They come in bags, and we assemble them. And they assemble very quickly and disassemble. It's incredible. So we started a company with that called Bags Pianos, Bags Piano Shells, and so everybody rents from us now, like including the Vancouver Symphony. So the Vancouver Symphony were using our pianos, and they said to Barry one day, "Do you think you could make a 9-foot?" Barry goes, "Sure." So he's now got a 9-foot grand that they use with the Vancouver Symphony that has an electric piano in it, but it's a 9-foot full concert, grand piano that fits in the back of his hatchback.
Okay. Is it big enough?
It's incredible, and they look so good. They have to look good if an orchestra's using them.
Oh, for sure. Or if you have Michelle Pfeiffer on lounging on top of it or something, you know.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'd let her do that.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't seen that movie for 30 years, probably. The Fabulous
Fabulous
Baker
Baker Boys.
Brothers.
Yeah, yeah. The Fabulous Baker Boys. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've known some of their world. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah. So with our shows, I mean, what happened was I had actually an agent had gotten me together with another guy, saying, "Okay, you do an Elton John thing. Maybe I could put you together with this guy who does Billy Joel." And so we did a couple of shows, and it was okay. I didn't think we just had any magic together. That's all. He was a great guy, great singer, but it just didn't seem to gel. But what happened was, I had played back home in Sault Ste. Marie. Revolver played in Sault Ste. Marie, and the next month I played there with Randy Bachman. So in 2 months, I played my hometown in the same theater. It was kind of
Yeah.
cool. And so the girl that was putting these things on, she was out in Vancouver visiting relatives, and she gave me a call. She said, "You want to have a coffee?" I said, "Sure." She says, "Well, I'm thinking of doing this fundraiser for the hospital, and I do you have do you have an act we could use?" I said, "Well, how about if Michael Sicoli and I do Billy and Elton?" Because I knew he knew Billy Joel songs,
Yeah.
and he's a great piano player and singer. And she goes, "Yeah, okay, that sounds good." I said, "Well, let me work on it. I'll get back to you." So we formed the Billy Nelton thing, and we did one warm up show once again at the Columbia, and then we went to Sault Ste. Marie where I shot a video of us playing, and it was incredibly successful and started getting booked all over the place. And then we were looking at each other going, "Well, what else can we do?" "Well, we don't want to do Beatles. We've done that all our lives. So why don't we do Simon and Garfunkel? Let's do something like that." "Okay, we'll do Simon and Garfunkel." Well, I'm always trying to think of something that's the two people, Billy and Elton,
Right.
Simon and Garfunkel. And it just came to the point where, well, I guess we should do Beatles. I mean, we're good at it. We know it, but like the back of our hands. And so
Yeah.
now we've added the Lennon McCartney show. So it's kind of nice because we can actually play a lot of the same theaters, 3 times over 18 months because you play there once as Billy Nelton, and you come back, let's say in 6 months as Lennon and McCartney, and you come back in 6 months as Simon and Garfunkel, and you rotate. And by the time you get back for the first show, it's now a year and a half has gone by. So you're playing the
Yeah.
same markets, but you're not oversaturating yourself. And each show is different. So
Yeah, Rocket Norton said with the Seeds of Time, they'd book themselves into a little town, but they'd make up like 5 different band names. It was just them, but since a country band would open, and then they had to kind of
that Rocket Norton's book I've read about 5 times. It was probably the most entertaining thing I've ever seen. A lot of it, I'm sure, is based in folklore, but he has a disclaimer at the beginning about the drumstick, about what everybody remembers about that drumstick.
yeah.
And because you ask 8 different people what happened, you're going to get 8 different answers.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So, but I couldn't believe he wasn't murdered because he basically he let everybody know where all the bodies were buried. You know what I mean? With that
Yeah.
book.
I think the one thing that helped is he was harder on himself than he was on anybody else.
Yeah, possibly. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a great book, and I mean, but some people can be ultra sensitive to that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah.
That something
He
like
was
that
most worried about Jerry Doucette.
was he?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
It's fun. It's funny. I don't recall the segment on Jerry very much, and I've read the book so many times. So
yeah.
obviously, maybe he toned it down, or maybe it just wasn't
No,
as much fun as
it
the rest
was
of it.
because because Jerry wrestled with depression and things, and so
Right.
yeah, so that's what he thought he described it, but he sent almost everybody the book, and he expected more pushback, but
Well, it was magnificent, and I
yeah,
remember when he was starting to figure he was going to write a book. We were on the road with Revolver. I remember we were in, I think it was Thunder Bay when I talked to him about it, and he said, "Yeah," he says, "it's sort of so fascinating. I'm reading up about how to write a book and what to do and this sort of thing." And he said, one thing that's really I found really interesting in these books I'm reading is they say if you want to write a book, first of all, figure out who your characters are, but do an incredible go way deep into your character, where they
Yeah.
were born, what kind, everything about that character, and then the next character, do the same thing. And he says once you've got the characters, the story will almost write itself because you know how each character is going to react in a given situation because you know about them. So it was actually quite fascinating.
Yeah. I helped him publish about 5 other books, which were
Yes.
novels. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
I have a couple of them. I haven't had a chance to read them yet, but
yeah, yeah.
I just
No, it's the thing is that almost everybody in the music industry in that time is mentioned somewhere in
yeah,
even
yeah,
yeah, even Brian Adams and
yeah,
Sarah McLachlan, because they were just getting into the business and asking everybody what they needed to do to succeed, and
right.
they excelled over the masters really,
Yeah,
in many ways.
yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah, well, of course, I'd never heard of the Seas of Time being in Ontario. It's like there's so many
yeah,
bands. Like there was bands that were heroes in Ontario that never made it across past Winnipeg, and vice versa. So I mean, I don't know if the Seas of Time got airplay. They might have gotten airplay in Montreal because they spent some time there. They might have
yeah,
gotten airplay somewhere, maybe in Toronto, but they certainly didn't get airplay in Sault Ste. Marie. So
no, and from some of the stories, they got run out of town from a few places. Jeff
I
Eddington was a little
know.
bit over the top.
Unbelievable. What a story. Good Lord.
I think he figured he was banned from Calgary for life or something. He played at like some high school gig, and they were told not to have any drug references, and he sort of simulated shooting heroin on the stage.
Right. Right. Of course.
And then
Yeah.
there's a story about girls selling Girl Guide cookies. But Jeff
Yeah.
was you could never tell where the stories ended or anything with Jeff, really. So
Well, I remember when I brought up the Body Shop when we first played with Sham, and of course Jeff was King Dudley. He was the DJ there,
yeah,
and that's so I met him. And I didn't know anything about the Seeds of Time or anything. And Jeff was just like, wow, this guy's funny, and he became like a buddy.
yeah,
We'd all hang around the DJ booth on our breaks because he was so goddamn funny. He'd be playing songs and cutting jokes.
yeah,
And then I remember we got invited down when Prism played 2 shows there. They had an early show and a later show. And they basically they'd have the people come in, they'd watch the show, and they'd get rid of those people, and the next group would come in, and they played the same show twice. But I happened to be there, and I remember I went up to Jeff. I said, "What do you think of it?" He said, "Oh, these are all my old bandmates." That was the first I knew that he even was a musician. He never said anything about it.
oh
I
yeah,
said, "What are you
yeah,
talking about?" He said, "Yeah, I used to play with all these guys in a band called the Seeds of Time." I went, "Really? Wow!" And that was the first time I'd ever heard anything about that.
yeah,
He never expressed that he was a musician. He was just always really, he was always really supportive of us and just like a buddy.
yeah.
Yeah, I love Jeff a lot.
So you mentioned this cease and desist. Are you
Mhm.
still playing cease and desist sometimes?
We haven't for quite some time. It's basically what's happened is that I worked with Randy Bachman for 24 years, and it was kind of time for me to sort of maybe have uh, my own life back. Like, and the reason I say that, like, I love playing with Randy, and I got nothing bad to say about Randy. It's just that with like Kelly and I, my wife, one of our big things when we got married is, we want to travel. We want to travel. And so I would find holes in the calendar. Okay, we're going to book a trip to wherever, Greece or whatever. And they'd say, okay, fine. And then we booked a trip to Greece, and all of a sudden, oh, well, we booked some dates. So you have to
Yeah,
cancel all that stuff. And it gets to a point where you're going, well,
yeah,
is it really worth it? I don't need the money anymore, but I love to play, and I've got those gigs with Michael I love doing. So maybe I'll just
yeah,
keep those dates and let the rest of it go, which is basically
yeah,
what I've done. So there's no cease and desist. There's no, I do the dates with Michael, and Randy's got other people now. And so it just kind of it makes more sense to do it that way.
yeah,
Um, and then this way, like this year, I know Kelly and I have already been to Mexico. We're going back. I've got some dates coming up with Michael, and then we're going to Mexico again. And I come back, got some more dates with Michael, and then we're going to Europe, and I got some more dates, and then we're going. So it's my schedule now.
Oh yeah,
And
for sure.
Michael and I work around it.
Yeah, you got your own life. I remember with Revolver juggling about, it says, well, okay, we're the Randy gigs, around trying to schedule Revolver into things, right? So
it was hard, and not only that, I mean, there was also Cease and Desist at that time. I was playing with that band too, so it was, I was going quite a bit, from one thing to another. And of course, even back in those days too, Cease and Desist was playing over in Europe quite a bit too, and those would be like month-long engagements. So it got to be, I loved it. Don't get me wrong. I loved all those days, and I loved everything I did. But it's just, I don't know if I'd want to do it now.
No. So I've been following your Substack, and you talked about Mexico, and I really enjoyed that article where you were talking about healthcare in the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. And so that was interesting.
Yeah, well, what it is that I've had this issue with my back, and I wanted to, just being sore and this sort of thing. It happens, and I didn't quite know what it was because it didn't seem to match what anybody thought it might be.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to get an MRI here. You're basically on a wait list for at least a year. But I found that when I was down in not Huatulco, where did we go? Oaxaca, so we looked there, and it was going to cost me 250 Canadian dollars to get an MRI done there. Yeah. And well, when can I do it? How about tomorrow?
Yeah.
It was that sort of thing. So I did it, and the healthcare was unbelievable. And then Kelly took a spill on the street, and so we're going, oh gosh, what's going to happen? Well, we found out that there was a hospital a block and a half from where we were staying, the hotel we were at. And we walk over there, get right in, and it was like incredible service. Like we were literally in there for not much more than 35 minutes, from the beginning to her getting x-rays to the doctor's thing. And he gave her his personal email address. If you have any questions, you can contact me, and I'll, just unbelievable service, like just incredible. And it cost us like next to nothing. It was so cheap,
I think you said it was less than $100 or something.
Yeah.
They followed up and phoned you the next day to see how you're doing or something. So
incredible, just incredible. Yeah. I had the same experience in Warsaw, actually. I remember having a throat problem or something. I forget what it was, ear infection or something, some weird thing. I remember having to go to a doctor in Warsaw, and of course I was talking to him. I said, "Wow," I said, I said, "Well, what's it like for you here? Like, what kind of lifestyle?" I said, "I'm doing good." I said, because the doctors are pretty well off in Canada, generally. He goes, "Oh, yeah." And he said, in the States, they're rich. He says, "Oh, the States are ridiculous." And I said, "I've got a good life." So I go on vacation with my family twice a year. I have a beautiful house. I got a beautiful car. I got a beautiful family. What more do I need? It's just, well, he said, I don't really need any more. I can retire whenever I want. It's just, everything's way out of whack on this side of the country. On this side of the world.
Yeah, it is. It is for sure. No, it was just because I'm married to a dual citizen. She was born in Los Angeles, and we have this discussion about U.S. healthcare and Canadian healthcare, and then there are quite a few. I know there are quite a few places, sort of medical destinations in Mexico, where people will go for dental work or medical work. It's like So it's and I've known a few people who never worry about travel insurance going to Mexico because if something happens, it's affordable.
Yeah. That's very true. Unless it's absolutely life-threatening, But I mean, I'm lucky enough too. Like Kelly's retired from the hospital, so we've got a wonderful extended health plan too. So we can travel, and it's right through until we die, both of us. Like nothing changes, so we can travel wherever we want. We're fully covered, so we're lucky. That's pretty rare. That's pretty rare.
Yeah. So where are you living now?
I live in Victoria, actually on the outskirts of Victoria, a place called Langford, and I live on a lake called Glen Lake. So we got a beautiful little home here, and it's, we've got a huge backyard. The deck is the size of our house, actually, and at the bottom of that you look, and there's the Galloping Goose Trail, and right across from that is the beach for the lake. It's fantastic.
It's a beautiful area. And my brother and I were out there last year, and it was just amazing how much new construction was going on there.
Well, Langford, when we moved into this area, because we bought right at the right time. I sold in Vancouver just as the peak at that particular time. The peak was starting to come down, but I still made really good money on my house, but it hadn't started to rise here yet. So I was able to sell that house and buy this house cash, and we banked the rest of it. And Kelly sold her house later, and so it's been wonderful for us. It really worked out well. And the nice thing about this house too is that the guy who sold it to us basically gave us everything in it. He said he was retiring to his sailboat in the Canary Islands. He says, "You want into this?" So we got all his yard furniture, we got all of his tools, we got all everything. The only thing I brought over from Vancouver was my dining room table and my piano, and my musical equipment, my studio. But everything else was like it was a plug and play house.
That was great. Yeah,
it was amazing.
Years ago, when we were crazy, I helped some sort of the younger brothers of a bunch of my friends had this gigantic couch, and they got an apartment on the 12th floor, and we ended up pulling it up with ropes and stuff, and everybody's drinking beer and making sure it didn't go through. Anyway, they said once they got it in there, says it's going with the apartment. We're not taking this out again. It's there forever.
No, oh God. Well, it's funny because I've got in my studio here, I needed a cabinet that would hold all my costuming and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Away for the rest of the house. So Kelly found this thing on probably Facebook Marketplace or something, where somebody was selling this great big old divider cabinet that they had. So I went there. They ended up giving it to me, but it was absolutely freaking massive, like this massive closet, and on the other side was all these shelves and stuff. And luckily my friend Rob Beauchamp was over at the time, and he said, "Well, we'll get out of here." But to get it out of the house, we had to cut the bottom off the thing. So he brought out whatever saw he had, some reciprocating saw or something, cut the entire bottom off the thing. And we loaded it onto a truck and tied it all down and got it over here. Then we had to cut it some more to get it in this garage. It's like, I mean, it's great, but I'm sort of thinking the same thing. Like, if we sell this house, is this going to stay in the garage?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. But yeah, it's this garage has turned into quite a nice little studio. I've done quite a few albums here now, so.
Yeah. I didn't mention that in the blog post, but you do have it's Riverside? Or Lakeside?
Lake House.
Lake House. There we go. Something like that.
Yeah, Lake House
water in it.
Yeah, some sort of water. Yeah. No, I've done a few albums here. Like, it's funny because I did about equivalent of about 2.5 albums with Barry Greenfield in Vancouver. And how that happened was just before COVID hit, we had a mutual friend, Bob Soltis, who was always talking about getting together with Barry Greenfield. And of course, Barry Greenfield has got such a colorful story. I don't know if you know who he is, but you should look him up.
Yeah. Okay.
Barry Greenfield is like, this will tickle you a bit. In 1968, when John Lennon and Paul McCartney went on the Tonight Show to announce Apple Records, Barry was sitting in his living room. He never had a band, but he liked to write songs on his guitar. And they said, "Come and see us. We're not going to turn anybody away." But they did the whole sales pitch. And Barry goes, "Perfect." So he gets a plane ticket, goes to Apple Records, and actually John Lennon loved his material.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, but he was so afraid because he'd never performed before. He said they wanted to do an album with him, and he said, "I don't want to do that. I just want to write songs." And they said, "Well," and anyway, he ended up backing out of the project, and he came home. And then 2 years later, he goes back to England again, and he ends up hooking up with Graham Goldman, who ends up, from 10cc. Now, Graham Goldman at the time, he had written "Bus Stop for the Hollies," all these huge hits. And this is before 10cc, but they were working on. They did have their own recording studio at the time, and so Barry's songs that were recorded over there, it's him and 10cc playing on them. It's just a remarkable story. Like he's a guy you should look up and talk to. It's incredible. But anyway, so what happened was, getting back to the story. So Bob Soltis was always saying, you and Barry should get together. So Barry was over here for some reason, and we said, well, let's have a coffee. So we went for a coffee, and we yacked for like 2.5 hours. It felt like we were old friends right from the beginning. So then he said, well, maybe we can record together. And I said, well, it's going to be hard. I live here, you live there. And so he just basically has a little iPad with a little bit of a music software program on there and a decent microphone. And so he'll send me an idea, and I'll work on it and send it back and forth, over email until it's done. And we've done a lot of songs that way. Lately, I've been trying to keep it closer to home where people actually come here and sing.
Yeah.
A little bit easier. I did Sarah Smith. I did a Sarah Smith album too. She's fantastic. She's another. That girl's always on the road working her craft. She's in Europe. She's in Canada. She's in the States. She's in the Bahamas. She's like that girl's. She's a hard worker and a good songwriter, great singer, great performer.
So, with your studio, you can play quite a few of the instruments yourself.
Yeah, I've got everything always plugged in. Like my drums are always ready to go. They're always mic'd up, ready to go. So whenever the idea comes upon me, I got a couple of guitars anyway.
A few, yeah.
and then keyboards and stuff. So it's like whenever I feel like doing some work, I come in here and everything's ready to go. I just plug and play, so, which is nice. I find that a lot of times if you have to work at setting everything up, by the time you've done that, you've lost the incentive to write or be creative. This way it's quick.
Yeah, you can just sit down.
I can put it down really fast. I can get down and play a drum track, and get everything. And one of the things you might be interested in this, like one of the very first writing things I ever did for actually writing was I phoned up John Hall one day, just out of the blue. And in 1987, me and him got together and started writing some songs. Now, it was the first time I'd ever tried to write, but I wanted to write with John because I liked the stuff that he did with Jeff with the Hun.
Sure. Yes.
And I figured, okay, well, this could be kind of fun. So we wrote these songs. Anyway, they we recorded them. It was on his 8-track Fostex, and then I had some rough mixes on cassette, and we just sort of stopped working. It sort of fell by the wayside. And then John contacted me last year, and of course, typical John, I hadn't heard from him in years. I didn't even recognize the phone number, and so the phone rings. I pick it up. Mick, yeah, I got them. I don't know who it is. I got them. What are you talking about? Hostages? I don't know. I said, hello, Mick. It's John. Oh, hi, John. I got them. Got what? I found the tapes. I said, what do you mean? So I found the 8-track tapes of all of our recordings. He said, we got to somehow preserve these. So I gave him Craig Zerba's number, and Craig does, the baking process where you can put, because the tapes fall apart and disintegrate. So he went over to Craig's with the tapes, and you get one run through. You can do it once. Once they're baked, you get it once, and the tapes are toast. But he put them into digital format, and then Craig sent me a thumb drive with all the songs on it, all the tracks. So I've been going through them and all. So all the stuff that we did, of course, we had John's grand piano, we had his big Oberheim synthesizer and his Moog that he played bass stuff on, and we had his DX7 piano keyboard at the time. I had my guitar and a Rockman and a reverb unit and a microphone. And anyway, so we had all, and John had his drum machine, his drumulator, and so we wrote these songs, and now what happened was we got them transferred over. Now, the good thing is that we were able to, let's put it this way: the tracks go, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 across the tape.
Yeah.
Now the tracks 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those sound a little bit better than, or actually, 1 1 and 8, those tracks are toast because they've disintegrated. But luckily, there was enough there, and with the tapes, the cassette mixes that I had, I was able to extract things and actually pull them together. So I've been piecing together those songs. So I should have had it done by now, but just other things have gotten in the way. But I'm almost done. I'll be releasing that just for posterity,
No,
for
for
no,
sure. Yeah.
it's not going to be a big fanfare, but at least the songs that John and I did are going to, I'll put them out, on Spotify and whatever, and
Yeah.
just have them there, just so that they're there. A bit of a, a bit of a vanity project, I suppose, but vanity press sort of thing. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
go ahead.
John's pretty amazing, really. Just incredible
Incredibly imaginative.
musicality. Yeah.
It's got an imaginative brain, it's like he's like a wind-up toy. You sit him down and he just starts going. He's like, what the hell? The things that are happening and arpeggios here and there, and just he's really quite musical.
Yeah. So you mentioned Hun. Rocket said that was probably the best music project he was ever in, and it's too bad it didn't, it had a premature end.
Probably because he felt that he was being respected as a musician himself too, as opposed to being pressed on. There was a lot of bad attitudes, and we've all lived through them. I'm not, but a lot of bad attitudes where musicians called down other musicians and stuff. And I think what happened was at that point, Jeff was happy to be there. It was just after Sham had split up, and he was able to have a place for him to write. And he was writing with John with keyboards, which he'd never done before. And he respected John and Rocket, and then of course Donnie and. I listen to those songs to this day. It's part. If you look on my phone for my iPod, the Hun album is always in there. I've always got it on. I listen to it very, very regularly. It's one of my favorite things. I think the songs are wonderful. I think the playing is fantastic. I think that it brings me to a place in my life where I go, wow, this is cool. Jeff's working with those guys. And that was before I knew those guys,
Yeah.
I didn't really know Rocket or John at the time. I knew Donnie because I toured with Trooper, but
it
was just neat that he was part of that.
No, yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, so that's what spurred me working with John. And okay, it's one thing. Another thing about Shama too is that it's funny because that all four of us, Michael Sicoli, Jeff Neal, Brian Armstrong, and myself, we're all still really close friends. Like we almost all of us talk daily, like not weekly, daily. Like there's at least a message or whatever, or a joke or something. There's always, which is great. I couldn't have. I was the luckiest bugger on earth. I was failing high school. I don't even have my grade 10. My dad actually let me quit high school to go on the road with those guys, and thank God he did, because that's been my career ever since. It was a lucky break to get with guys that dedicated. I could have gone on the road with a bunch of stoners, and ended up, but I didn't. I was with really dedicated people, Yeah, so it was nice.
I played in a band in 1978. I went to Cap College, and they had a jazz program there, and there were a couple of people I already played with who were there, and we formed a band. But we had a shelf life. We were going to the guitarist was going to move to Toronto to take lessons, but we got together, like the first time we got together, the first 5 things we played were stage ready, and we learned a tune every day as long as we were together. And I think if we didn't have a shelf life, we'd probably still be doing things today together.
Yeah, it's interesting, eh? Yeah. Sometimes you can get a magical combination, but yeah, in your case, sadly, there was other things on the go.
Yeah, and there's a Beatles component to that too, because we started off with sort of jazzy tunes and sort of quiet blues, but we had the third set was a one big Beatle medley, right? And we got an agent. They were kind of reluctant. They would only book us in if they were desperate. But everywhere we played, we got rehired. We got booked back after the Beatles set, and then we just got more. We got louder and raunchier as the day went on. But so. it's just, but the Beatles thing where that sealed the deal.
It's really funny because by the time we finished playing we played at the Body Shop, I don't know how many times, but I remember the first time we played the Body Shop, I think it was on Friday night. Worm walked up. There's Worm and Helmar ran the Body Shop, and Worm walked up and said, "By the way, when you guys get down outside the lobby of your hotel tomorrow, you got a limousine waiting for you. You can do whatever you want all day." And just as to say thanks for the business,
Yeah.
But I remember by the time we finished playing the Body Shop, we'd played there 6, 7, 8 times, maybe, I don't know. But by that time, we were playing all original from beginning of the night to the end of the night, except for a 15-minute Beatle medley.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd always do that at the end of the second set.
Yeah,
but the rest of the night was all our own stuff, which our own stuff went over great live. It didn't transfer to, because the band performed so freaking well. It just did. People danced to the songs. The band performed well, but when you actually heard the songs on tape, you go, "Wow, this is not very good." These aren't good. These are not good songs.
Yeah, a bit like Marshall Tucker. They're a very energetic band live, but in the studio, some of them are a little bit flat. But
yeah, I've done a couple of boat cruises with those guys.
Yeah.
Those rock and roll boat cruises, they're all whatever's left of the Marshall Tucker band. I don't even know who's original anymore, but they're on there all the time. I remember I went to see I think it was the last cruise I was on, or the cruise before, and they said that the Love and Spoonful was going to be there. And I'm going,
really?
Okay, it was John Sebastian. Of course he wasn't there.
No.
And the only person from the Love and Spoonful that was there was the bass player.
Okay.
And he didn't know his parts. And neither did the other guys, because the other guys were actually in, let me think about, Peter Asher was there with his band and telling all of his stories. And so his band they somehow got the job as being what band did I just say? You're going to have to do an edit here. But, what did they? The Love and Spoonful. And so they got the job being the Love and Spoonful with this bass player, and he didn't know his parts. He had a chart in front of him, and he was playing wrong bass notes all over the place, because I know that stuff so well, because I love that band. And everybody was there reading lyrics and playing all the wrong parts. I was just so disappointed.
Yeah.
God, I could have put a Love and Spoonful band together that would sound just like them,
Yeah. And it seems to me you really need John Sebastian to be singing those songs.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, he's the voice of the band.
Yeah.
But and I knew that wasn't going to happen, but I was hoping at least the songs would be represented better, like musicianship, but it just wasn't. I was really, really disappointed. It's sadly that happens quite a bit on those boat cruises. They'll throw anything in there sometimes. As long as somebody's got the rights to the name, they'll just throw anybody in with them, and away they go.
Oh yeah. So in Rocket's book, there was a story about a boat cruise with 10 years after.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you remember
that.
He basically.
I sort of remember that.
Yeah, basically, he said the organizer just loaded the boat up with women, booze, and drugs. And I guess the 10 years after guys were kind of Christian and a little bit. They just instructed the captain, says, "Drop us off anywhere. We got to get out of this boat."
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, I remember I played with 10 years after here in Victoria at the Forge Cabaret. Played a lot of shows at the Forge, backing up people. Yeah. Blondie and God, who else? Tragically Hip. Okay. Just like a lot of, because it was a big room in the basement here that used to. It was sort of like Victoria's what do you call it, Commodore. It was almost like Victoria's Commodore. Not as big, but it was like the next step down from the Commodore. Yeah,
maybe bigger than the Yale, probably.
I'm not all that familiar. Oh yeah, bigger than the Yale. Yeah. The Forge was a pretty big place. I think at one point it was a bowling alley years and years ago. Okay. And actually, one of its claims to fame was that David Foster played in the house band at the Forge years ago. Right. Yeah, it was called the Old Forge then. and now it's called something else, District or something. No, it went from District, and now it's some other thing. But it's, the Forge had its mighty times, that's for sure. Well, the weird thing about the Forge is that there was a period of time when I had Paradox with me, Jeff Neal, and Bernie Aubin from the Headpins, and then that band split up because Bernie went back to the Headpins, and then Jeff and I picked up Mark LaFrance, and then Jeff got a job to play with Jimmy Barnes in Australia, so he left. So I got Mike Sicoli back into the band. So now Michael Sicoli and I had played in Trauma, so now it's me, Mike, and Mark LaFrance, and we're out there as Paradox. So then about 2 years go by, and Jeff came back for a while, and Bernie was off the road for the Headpins, and they wanted to put Paradox back together. I said, well, I'm using the name. I'm already playing. And they said, well, let's call it something else. We called it Hat Trick. So in Vancouver, and Hat Trick and Paradox became two of the favorite bands at the Forge in Victoria. So once a month, I would play guitar for a week at the Forge with Paradox. The next month, I'd play bass for a week with Hat Trick. And I played here probably 12 times in a year. It's like, because both bands were so popular.
That's great.
And it was all different. It was all different stuff, but it was, and a whole different attitude, of course. But wow, it's so strange.
Yeah.
So I guess we probably exhausted me. Anything else you want to know?
Maybe we can let the audience go. I did I never know. Usually these interviews go sometimes about 30 minutes, but I had this was quite a few years ago. I was talking with a woman about real estate topics, and Bonnie's dad was getting older, and she also was involved with, auctions. Also, anyway, we ended up talking for an hour and 40 minutes, and I think we probably could have talked the rest of the day, but we just sort of says, "Wow, geez, I think we should probably let everybody go." I'm going to go back and listen to see what we talked about for that time, but it was yeah.
I had things like that. I ran a podcast during the pandemic, mostly, and sometimes you just got on a roll with somebody, and it would just go on and on and on, and you end up talking for forever. I think Mark Farner was like that, where it's like we finally just had to say, I guess we better go. Another one was oh gosh.
Well, we may have lost Mick here.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, and I can. Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, I can. There we go. Can you hear me?
Uh-oh.
Well, maybe that's our cue that we should.
Yet? Hello?
Hello, there we are.
No, I know what it was. What was, somebody called me and it cut off the thing. Said, I'm using my phone because I couldn't get the darn computer thing to work, sadly.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not too jingly when you put this together.
Yeah. No, that's okay. What was I going to say? Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know if you follow Rick Beato. He does interviews.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's one with Mike McDonald, and it's like an hour and 20 minutes or something like that. And I never get bored with that. And those things. I think you did some things with with Randy Bachman, the songs and stories tour, and that's, I think, the last one's about an hour and a half. I just I never get bored of those stories.
I remember when we first went on the road with Every Song Tells a Story, back when I first started working with Randy, I remember his manager at the time, who was his son-in-law, because we'd go on stage and the show wouldn't be done for like 3.5 hours, because Randy just loved to talk so much.
Yeah.
Like the story for Taking Care of Business alone was half an hour.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And so and his son-in-law would say, Randy, we got to cut it short. And Randy's going, what are you talking about? They're getting good value for their money. And he says, no, you don't understand. These are union houses. Once you're finished your 2-hour slot, all the people here are getting paid double time. The promoters losing money. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
So had to cut that back. It was tough though. Because Randy, he loves to spin a good yarn, that boy, and it's it was hard for him to truncate a lot of that stuff because for him it was just fun telling the stories.
Yeah, fun telling the stories for sure.
Yeah.
Did you get involved with some of the vinyl tap? Because he would do an episode where they go through a bunch of songs, and one time he had a band in there in the studio playing the songs.
I don't recall. I was never part of that. The only thing I would do is give him ideas for the show.
Yeah. I that was great,
Yeah.
all songs with the color white in it,
Yeah, I think they started getting fact checked on a lot of that stuff, and that's why he was let go. Actually,
yeah, maybe.
I remember. I don't want to badmouth him, but I remember his ex-wife at the time saying, "Yeah, Randy won't let the truth stand in the way of a good story." So I think there was a lot of times where people were writing CBC and saying, that's not true. What Randy's saying on the show didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I think they ended up hearing that enough that that's when the show was canceled.
Yeah, but it was always entertaining.
Oh, always entertaining. There's no two ways about it. I mean, I remember we always have the super fans, especially around Toronto and stuff, that would come out to see every show we ever did, no matter what it was, whether it's the orchestra show or the every song tells a story, or rock show, or Bachman-Turner or whatever, and it's Randy's stories aren't the truth, but they're just so entertaining. We don't care.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've heard I think a couple of variants of American Women. Sometimes the stories vary, but
yeah, well, that one actually is not too far away from Burton and Randy sort of tell the same story with that one. The TCB one is a little far-fetched, but anyway, I don't want to get into that.
The other one, I think you've mentioned earlier about how much you got paid or didn't get paid for gigs. And then one of the Randy stories about we were in the early days of going, they hop in the car and they drive and play somewhere down in the US. And the border guard would always say, where are you going? Oh, Dallas. How much are they paying you? $400. Where are you going? Yeah. New York. How much are they paying you? $400.
Yeah, I think that was a good catchphrase with the show. I think I'm sure the money varied more than $400, yeah. But yeah, that's probably reasonable to think of a band having their first hit and going down to back up people. I could see them going to a place for $400, maybe $500 in those days.
Well, I think the border guy was doing the math. Says, you guys can't possibly get there and back. It's going to cost you more than $400 in gas.
Yeah. It's hard to say.
And then there was one time during the Vietnam War, a military guy said, "Oh, come check in over at the this building over there," and the guy at the border crossing.
Yeah, selective service building. Yeah.
Yeah, he says, "Well, you guys have a permit, and because you have a permit, you can be
a green card
drafted." Yeah. So
yeah, a green card. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're paying taxes in the States, you can be drafted.
Yeah, so he suggested go to the next crossing, go back to Canada, and don't come back till the war's over.
Yeah. But it's pretty amazing. The wild thing too is that right when they were at their peak, they finally had "American Woman" as the #1 song, the #1 album. Basically, Randy. Well, if you talk to Burton says Randy was fired. You talk to Randy says he quit. So. And then he went home and he basically just formed a band around Fred Turner and had his two brothers play with him. Yeah. To keep it a family thing. It was easier to deal with because it was all out of his pocket at that point. He was using his Guess Who money to finance the Bachman-Turner Overdrive when it had becoming BTO anyway. They were still the country band at that point.
Yeah, it worked out all right.
Oh yeah. Yeah, if you think about it, though, Randy's been a rock star since 1965.
Yeah,
he's never not been a rock star. It's kind of an interesting thing. Yeah, he's had quite an illustrious career,
for sure,
and a lot of respect from a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I saw him in the Jazz Cellar when he was doing his jazz album.
Yeah, I played there.
Yeah.
I was playing upright bass for that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That was another thing. I remember I started playing with him, and I knew he'd done this jazz album with these jazz guys. And so I phoned up Paul, his manager at the time, and said, I'd like to have a shot, because I knew he was going to tour the jazz album the next year. I said, I'd like to have a shot at maybe auditioning for that. I said, yeah, okay, let me see what he says. And so about 3 weeks later, I get a call. Paul says, okay, you're in. I said, what? I got an audition? He says, no, you got the job. You can play upright bass, can't you? I went, yeah. So I learned how to play upright bass. And the very first gig we did was live at the rehearsal hall on what the hell the name was the name of that station, but it was live, no tape, live at the rehearsal hall it was called, and I'm playing bass, and that's the first time I'm playing bass in front of people, the upright bass. It's like, I'm going, oh my God, he's got all these guest stars coming in that are just hotshot musicians and stuff, and going, holy smokes, what am I doing here?
And it's a pretty different animal.
Yeah, I just make it happen. But anyway, I guess I should go. I'll talk to you later, Greg.
Well,
thanks a lot for thanks a lot for hooking up with me.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah.
Actually, before you go, are you doing any more shows with Mike?
Oh God, yeah. You want the list?
When's the next one coming up?
Oh gosh, I better pull up the list here. Let's see. Oh gosh, February 13th, we're playing in Campbell River.
Okay.
With Lennon McCartney.
Yeah.
The next night we're playing at the casino in Colwood, and we're doing Billy and Elton that's Valentine's Day. The day after we're playing in Sydney with Billy and Elton at the Mary Winspear Theatre. Then let's see. I think, is that when we're done? No, we got more than that. Then we got, oh yeah. And then we're playing Alberta, the Arden Theatre in St. Albert, Alberta on the 23rd of February. We're playing the McLab Theatre in Leduc, Alberta on the 24th. We're playing Blue Frog on the 27th and 28th with Lennon and McCartney.
Okay.
So that's February 27th, 28th. And then after that, I'm going back to Mexico, like I said.
Yeah.
And then we're at the Inlet Theatre with Billy and Elton on the 20th of March. And on the 22nd, we're at the Venables Theatre in Oliver with Simon and Garfunkel. And on the 23rd, we're in the Rotary Center in Kelowna with Lennon and McCartney. And then it keeps going.
Keeps going.
And then on the 7th of April, we're playing at the Clark Theatre in Mission with Simon and Garfunkel. And on April 9th, we're playing at the Centennial Theatre in North Vancouver with Lennon and McCartney.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the stuff coming up fairly close in the next few months.
Keeping pretty busy there.
Yeah. It's not, like I said, it's enough to keep me happy.
Yeah, no, that's great. So we're
get to noodle around on my studio the rest of the time.
Yeah, we're in Merritt, so we might be able to swing some of those.
You're in Merritt?
Yeah, Merritt, yeah.
You live there now?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, we've been here for about 5 years. We lived in the RV traveling through the States for quite a while.
Well, that's cool.
And then we've been in Bowen Island, North Vancouver for a bit, and then we've been here for a while.
Well, I would say that the probably the best one for you to see would be
Kelowna.
Probably be the 22nd at the Venables Theatre in Oliver. That's probably close to you.
Yep.
Or Kelowna for that matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, 23rd, 22nd, 23rd. Yeah, look us up. Tell your friends.
Okay.
All right, take care, buddy.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.